Hi, everybody. Celia Waterhouse here. Thank you so much for joining us at OnPoint Mentors. Today, we have Dr. Denise Nadler. Now, Dr. Denise Nadler is a self-growth catalyst and a global transformational teacher of universal principles. She helps her clients and her students identify and remove core inner obstacles so that they can live more meaningful and fulfilling lives. Dr. Denise Nadler, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi. Nice to be here, Celia.
That was a mouthful, but I know exactly what you're trying to convey because you are that person who does transform lives. I've seen it in action, and I so appreciate watching you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. It means a lot.
I only have one question for you today. Other days, another time I'm going to ask you more questions, and we're going to dive deep into some of these subjects. But just for today, if you could share one piece of advice with your clients on how you help them manage their emotions in this divisive world, what would that be?
Well, one piece of advice is never easy to find, but it reminds me of divisive world, makes me think of Plato's allegory of the cave. Some of you might be familiar with that, where people were basically living their entire life in a cave. And you might even relate to that right now, that they're living their life in a cave, and that's all they know, that this cave is all they know. But eventually somebody figured out that there was light out there and found a whole world out there. It's a longer, deeper story. But ultimately, we can live our life in a cave, or we can actually expand our ability to see that there's something beyond that. And that what is kind of the way that I think about that is when Yogananda wrote a piece where he talked about life being a cosmic movie. So if we can shift our perspective to observe what's happening more like a movie, when we watch a movie, we don't get, we sometimes get involved with it, but we don't get emotionally sucked into everything that's going on in the movie. Or we might, but we're going for a ride and we know we're watching a movie. So eventually the movie ends and we go on with our lives. So these two teachings are helpful when we think about how do we shift from where we are in the moment. I call that shift more like a transformed, transcendent mind. So it requires transformation. Transformation means that whatever was is now something else. Transcendent means beyond. So we're transforming to have our mind operate beyond the way that it is typically operating. But here's the point. We can't will ourselves into that. We can't just say, okay, that's what I want. And then it's there, especially in times of challenge, change, chaos, and crisis, and a divisive experience of the world outside, because our brains and our nervous system are designed to automatically beneath our awareness start a tsunami of neurochemicals that literally cause us to go into a reaction. So if we're unaware that that's happening, ultimately that reaction of neurochemistry will eventually cloud our brain. So our ability to think clearly, our ability to communicate clearly, stay focused, perform like we want to, our relationships will suffer, our well-being will suffer. So there is a reality to knowing, first of all, that it's possible to have a transformed what I like to call the transformed, transcendent mind, but also that there's a reality of what's happening in the body. The body is automatically releasing these neurochemicals. So when that happens and our brain gets clouded, we can sometimes go completely off from being able to think straight and act according to our higher desires, to be able to manage relationship and life on a day-to-day basis. So the first part of that is being aware that this is happening. Awareness alone can often change things. Many studies show that just by being aware that something is happening, you can actually get in between it. Now, of course, what I recommend is that we have a plan in place already. so that we know how, when things are really coming down on us, when we're in some type of crisis or chaos, or it's just a consistent amount of challenge, that we have something that we do on a regular basis to bring our higher executive center of our brain back on track, where we can be focused, where we can access our higher wisdom and our higher intelligence. So it's important to have a protection plan. I call it a chaos protection plan, or also a chaos command protection plan. And so by doing that, by having this in place, there's a higher probability that not only are you going to create an environment internally that can see what's happening and not get hooked into it, but also that you, over time, we now know, science is absolutely certain that we have the ability to literally change the architecture of our brains, which also affects our nervous system. Neurons can change, the whole entire cortex of our brain can change over time, repetition and reinforcement, that the scientific terminology, neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is the changing of the architecture of the brain. So we actually can choose to find the ways that work for us, and everybody's uniquely different. Everybody's brain works differently, so not everybody's the same thing's going to work for you that it works for somebody else. And in fact, many people would say to me, well, I know I've tried meditation, but I can't do that. Or, I know I should take deep breaths, but that doesn't work for me. So there's a lot of different ways to it's the important thing is not to just say, because what doesn't work for you, that it can't work for you, or that nothing can work for you. So something can. And so making a daily ritual of taking time to calm the nervous system, connect with with yourself internally, utilizing some form, whatever that is for you. And it's important to look into what's the best way for you to be able to get connected, to focus. Sometimes meditation isn't the right way, but just being in nature is the right way. As you can see, that's my value for me.
I can hear the birds.
Time. Yes, as I can. So ultimately, what Yogananda was talking about, that the movie is played out within the screen of our consciousness. So if we could actually imagine that we are directing, writing, acting, and living this movie, that sometimes we can step back. That's what the transformed, transcendent mind is. And then our higher intelligence comes back on board. And when that can occur, the probability of being able to more flow through life, instead of finding yourself being caught up like a deer in the headlights and stuck and influenced by what everybody else is saying or doing, or what the people around you are saying or doing, or there's so many things that can affect us. But when we have that connection within, when we have that connection to our own inner voice, which can be built over time. It doesn't happen in a day, but I can tell you it can be built over time. There's a higher probability that, yes, it's true. There are real things happening in the divisive world. Absolutely. You don't say, oh, well, it's not happening, it's not real. No, it's real. But how it affects you and how you take it in, and if you make it yours, it becomes yours. If you recognize that you can actually live in that world and flow through that world and stay attentive to your energy, to where you put your mind, to what you focus on, and how you can be in that state of the world, part of the world, but it's not taking you for the ride, then you will find that whatever's going on, you manage to live your life with a greater sense of meaning and purpose and fulfillment. And what's happening around you will happen around you. But what happens inside of you is what creates and moves you into manifesting what it is that you're here to do. And that's wise to always focus on what you're here to do.
That's fabulous. What do you do? I mean, nature, I imagine.
Yes, nature is definitely one of them. As someone who's been, I started out as a child on stage. My mother put all of her children, her daughters, into dance when we were young. So we all learned how to dance. Now, you'd say, well, what does dance have to do with being able to manage? Well, if you ever watch someone dance, I mean, if you're someone who loves dance, just by watching them, you could feel this beautiful change in your own system just by watching a person dance. So I have a love for dance. I have a love for watching it. I have a love for doing it, and I do it on a regular basis. Have those ballroom dancing and Latin dances on a regular basis. I also sing on a regular basis. It's important to find out what works best for you. It's important to take the steps for awareness. The steps towards awareness, towards self-awareness, doesn't necessarily happen in an instant. And sometimes what you think will work for you today may not work for you tomorrow. So constantly checking in with yourself. I do a whole ritual on a regular basis, and I do modify it as time goes by. And what I find for myself and for those who I work with is that you can get to the core of where you resonate. So some people need to move in order to connect to themselves. Some people need to just turn in quietly in order to connect to themselves. Some people also respond to different types of breathing and different types of sound, not just singing, but sound. So there are many, many different tools and mechanisms, all of which can make up a wonderful protection plan. It's wise to sample a whole bunch and see how you feel, check in with yourself. And those tend to, my experience is you'll figure out what works for you if you pay attention, slow down, feel into it, and just notice. When I'm in nature, like right now, when I'm here, I can feel the nature all around me. I have it in front of me, I have it behind me, and then my house is over there. And it's beautiful to just be able to be somewhere and know that you're connected to everything that's around you. But it takes being present in order to have that experience.
Right. Well, Dr. Denise Nadler, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. That was fabulous. I like how you gave us options, and it's okay if one doesn't work, try something else as long as it works for you.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you so much. And we're going to have some more conversations about other things at another time.
Okay. Thank you so much. Have a great